In a press conference yesterday, the Prime Minister came under fire for standing by his captain's pick, Catherine Deves, over concerns regarding gender reassignment surgery.
The issues that Catherine commented on yesterday, they're incredibly sensitive. They're very challenging. What we're talking about here is gender reversal surgery for young adolescents.
I thought the PM handled everything pretty sensitively, but not so the media pack, who went after him.
In Australia, people aged 18 and over, according to your own healthdirect.gov.au website, can undergo gender reassignment surgery. It can't happen to minors in Australia.
Even at any other stage, this is serious change. It is irreversible change.
Claims there from a pretty aggressive media pack that gender reassignment surgeries can't take place in Australia on anyone under the age of 18. Now, here to talk about a complex and difficult set of issues here is Bernard Lane, roving editor at The Australian and writer for the independent newsletter Gender Clinic News. Thank you, Bernard, for your time. The PM said yesterday in their broader clip that gender reversal surgery for minors is a serious and troubling issue. Journo said that they can't have the surgery if they're under the age of 18. Now, as I understand it, children in Australia can have reassignment surgery following recent court action. In 2016, your paper, The Australian, reported on the case of a 15-year-old child who the family court allowed to have a mastectomy, so the surgical removal of their breasts, in order to transition to a boy. Can you talk us through this issue, Bernard, and the legal reality of what's permitted in Australia regarding minors and these sorts of surgeries?
Yes, Peter, it is true that gender confirmation surgery, that's the more common term used, including mastectomy, does take place in Australia with patients under 18 years of age. The background to this is that the family court was given a special role to supervise these cases, kids suffering from gender dysphoria who identify as the opposite sex. What happened is that between 2013 and 2018, there was a campaign to get the family court to remove itself from the equation as much as possible. The gender clinics and the human rights lawyers said that family court approval in these under 18 gender medicine cases was unnecessary and discriminatory and slowed everything down. In relation to gender confirmation surgery, we're talking about mastectomy in Australia. Up until 2018, you needed family court approval for that to go ahead with an under 18 patient, even if the doctors and the parents all agreed it was the right thing to do. In 2018, in a case called Re Matthew, the family court said you don't need to come to us for approval for under 18 surgery, mastectomy, unless there is a disagreement between doctors and patients. There might be a disagreement, for example, about diagnosis, about the competence of the child to give informed consent. The background to the family court removing itself to some degree from its supervisory role was the argument by gender clinicians and the human rights lawyers that all the experts were agreed that these treatments were medically necessary and they were beneficial. That's a very questionable conclusion. So given that decision of the court, that the court will only adjudicate if there's conflict with any of the parties involved, if all the parties agree and it doesn't go to the court, how do we have any statistics about how many people under the age of 18 in Australia have gone down the path of surgery? Peter, the lack of good data is a big red flag in this area. Unless, as you say, there's a dispute and you get a family court case, we won't know about it. Up until 2018, the only source of public data that we had for under 18 gender medicine was family court case. When I say gender medicine, in particular mastectomy. Greg Hunt after reporting in the Australian newspaper of concerns about gender clinics, Greg Hunt promised that the states who run the children's hospitals with the gender clinics, that the states would come up with a new national framework with consistent data collection. There doesn't seem to have been any progress. The lack of transparency remains, and it's a very unsatisfactory situation for parents and clinicians who are worried about this area of medicine.
And of course, we've also got the situation before you get to the point of surgery, there's a lot of medicines that can be taken, puberty blockers, other hormone drugs that can be administered before you get to the point of surgery that starts the transition process. We know overseas they're much more advanced, I guess, in this debate. There's a lot more transparency, particularly in the United Kingdom. We now see cases where young people are adults and they're upset that they were not given, more options and perhaps better treatment for the path of irreversible change. This is a concern, surely, for Australia.
It is, and I watched the media debate about trans issues here with just perplexity, because there seems to be no awareness that overseas, in a multitude of countries, there is a very serious and intense medical debate about gender clinics, about the medicalised gender change for people under 18. And that debate just doesn't really seem to register here. Sweden, for example, which has world-class children's hospitals, the Karolinska Institute Hospital, that institute is associated with the Nobel Prizes. Last year, they decided that these hormonal gender medicine treatments for kids under 18, which are available in Australia, they decided in Sweden they would no longer be offered as routine treatments and only be given under strictly controlled clinical trials.
What worries me here, Bernard, is that even just debate, conversation like we're having now, is discouraged. We know with a lot of legislation at state level, parents are pushed out of the equation. Options for counselling. This is not, gender conversion stuff I'm talking about, but just counselling to make sure that this is the path, well informed, that the young person does really want to go down. That's also under threat in Australia.
That's right. We have 3 jurisdictions in Australia, Queensland, the ACT and Victoria, where they have passed these cookie cutter bans on so-called conversion therapy. What they've done is they have revived the extinct issue of gay conversion therapy, which was undoubtedly unethical. It appears to have finished. There's no evidence really of therapists offering coercive or unethical gay conversion therapy these days. But these bans on conversion therapy include this idea of changing gender identity. So if a therapist in those jurisdictions has a young person who is distressed about their birth sex, and that therapist might think that one good outcome is to relieve the distress and help that young person re-embrace their biological sex, that could lead to a complaint that that therapist is practicing conversion therapy, and it could be a criminal offence.
Bernard Lane, thank you for your scholarship on this issue. You are across the detail like no one else. Thank you for your time tonight.